Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So, you guys may have heard about this already, but I wanted to bring you all of the details. There was an almost 200-page summary judgment that was filed by Dominion Voting Systems. It was unsealed just last week. It contains some of the most damning evidence yet against Fox News and its hosts. I mean, this is like as smoking gun gets in a defamation case. So this is, of course, in regard to their $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit about election fraud lies propagated by the hosts and guests on Fox News and on their shows. And Dominion has compiled just a huge trove of private emails and text messages. This is through the discovery process. They've also deposed numerous Fox employees. So I want to say up front, I know that historically it's nearly impossible to prove defamation in court. But here's why I believe that Dominion and Smartmatic will prevail in these cases. Unlike most other cases of defamation, we've all, as U.S. citizens, lived through the consequences of this defamation. I mean, think about it. In a standard defamation case, it's usually an individual or a company that suffered a loss, but the jury has no connection to that loss. In this case, every juror probably has personally experienced January 6th to some degree. Every juror has attempted probably to engage in conversations in personal life, in their online life, with another party who was lied to by these networks and these hosts. The jurors know firsthand, most likely, what these lies have done to their family and their friends and how they rip the country apart. And for the jurors who are Trump supporters, they're going to get to see in black and white how Fox and other people lied to them day after day, night after night, when they knew and openly admitted behind the scenes that this was all bogus. So here's what they're saying in private. This is what the people at Fox were saying behind the scenes while simultaneously pushing Trump's conspiracy theories and lies out to their audience, some of whom are in prison and jail right now for January 6th. So Tucker Carlson referred to attorney Sidney Powell as a, quote, unguided missile, dangerous as hell, and poison. And in a November 8th text message, he wrote, quote, the software shit is absurd. He was obviously referencing Powell's unfounded claims that Dominion software flipped votes to Biden. Carlson also wrote to his producer, quote, Sidney Powell is lying, fucking bitch. He also confronted her directly, meaning Powell, about her failure to provide any actual evidence of election fraud. So this was in a November 17th email, November 17th of 2020. Carlson wrote to her, quote, you keep telling our viewers that millions of votes were changed by the software. I hope you will prove that very soon. You've convinced them that Trump will win. If you don't have conclusive evidence of fraud at that scale, it's a cruel and reckless thing to keep saying. And the day before he sent that message to Powell, Carlson wrote to another Fox host, Laura Ingraham, saying, quote, Sidney Powell is lying, by the way. I caught her. It's insane. Ingraham concurred. She wrote back to him saying, quote, Sidney is a complete nut. No one will work with her. Ditto with Rudy. So they're openly among themselves discussing the fact that their guests are insane. Carlson then replies to Ingraham and says, quote, it's unbelievably offensive to me. Our viewers are good people and they believe it. Then in another exchange, Carlson told Laura Ingraham that he tried to make the White House disavow Powell. And Ingraham replied, quote, no serious lawyer could believe what they were saying. And they weren't the only ones who were slamming Sidney Powell. In an exchange between Fox executive Raj Shah and one of Carlson's producers, a man named Alex Pfeiffer, Shah said, quote, so many people openly denying the obvious that Powell is clearly full of it. And then Pfeiffer responded, quote, "She is a fucking nutcase." And Tucker Carlson also made negative comments about Trump and his fear about what might happen if they didn't go along with Trump's narrative. Carlson wrote that Trump is good at, quote, destroying things. He's the undisputed world champion of that. He could easily destroy us if we play it wrong. And on November 13th of 2020, he texted his producer again saying that Trump needed to concede because, quote, there wasn't enough fraud to change the outcome. Then Carlson sent another text to his producer on the day of the Capitol attack, and he called Trump, quote, a demonic force, a destroyer. Now, in regard to my pillow guy, Fox's senior VP of programming for business said Mike Lindell was, quote, on the crazy train with no brakes. He also said of Fox host Maria Bartiromo, quote, the problem is she has GOP conspiracy theorists in her ear, and they use her for their message sometimes. No truer statement was ever made because it was revealed in the same document that just prior to Sidney Powell's November 8th appearance on Bartiromo's show, Powell emailed Bartiromo to explain that some of her so-called election fraud information, you're going to love this, it was coming from a source who, quote, gets her information from experiencing something like time travel in a semi-conscious state, allowing her to see what others don't see and hear what others don't hear. I am not making this up. I am dead ass serious. A woman who's not named in this filing wrote to Sidney Powell with all kinds of insane in the membrane conspiracy theories. And part of her email to Powell reads, quote, who am I? And how do I know all of this? I've had the strangest dreams since I was a little girl and was internally decapitated, and yet I live. The wind tells me I'm a ghost, but I don't believe it. So the ghost part, she doesn't believe, but she totally fully believes that she's internally decapitated and she's getting these messages that no one else can see or hear. That makes perfect sense to her. The ghost part's a little too far. So this is one of Sidney Powell's sources, quote unquote, for election fraud. These people are out of their fucking minds. And Maria Bartiromo, by the way, forwarded this information to Trump's son, Eric. That's how much she believed in it. Now, regarding Rudy Giuliani, another off the rails person, a producer for the Lou Dobbs show wrote that he was, quote, so full of shit. And also, speaking of Lou Dobbs, Jay Wallace, who's the president of Fox News, he said, quote, the North Koreans do a more nuanced show than Dobbs. And Jerry Andrews, who's the executive producer of Jeanine Pirro's show, was quoted as saying, quote, Jeanine is just as nuts. Now, it's not clear who he was comparing her to, but he obviously thinks she's nuts. I think we all agree. And on November 5th of 2020, Fox host Bret Baier texted, quote, there is no evidence of fraud, in all caps, none, allegations, stories, Twitter bullshit. And on November 6th of 2020, the owner of Fox, Rupert Murdoch, told his CEO, quote, very hard to credibly claim foul everywhere. And then he added, quote, if Trump becomes a sore loser, we should watch Sean especially and others don't sound the same. So meaning Sean Hannity. We need to keep an eye on our own hosts so that they don't start mimicking what Trump is saying. That concern, by the way, was passed along to an executive producer for the 3 top primetime shows, and he agreed. That same day, Jeanine Pirro's November 7th show was canceled. This was done by the producer and a Fox executive because they were concerned that her guests were going to push election fraud fairy tales. And another Fox producer noted, quote, "They took her off because she was being crazy. Optics are bad, but she is crazy." Then around mid-November, a producer for Laura Ingram's show texted a Fox executive saying, quote, "This Dominion shit is going to give me a fucking aneurysm. As many times as I've told Laura it's BS, she sees shit posters and Trump tweeting about it." There was more to that message, but it was still under seal, so I don't know what else she said. Dominion's filing also details how Fox employees were punished if they tried to maintain any kind of journalistic integrity. So here's an example. Following Giuliani's unforgettable press conference on November 19th, you guys know which one I'm talking about, the one where he looked like all of the shit that he's full of was finally leaking out of his ears. So a Fox White House correspondent named Kristen Fisher fact-checked Rudy Giuliani's claims. This was on her Twitter account. She was immediately reprimanded. Fisher got a call from her boss saying that the higher-ups at Fox were unhappy with her for, being an actual journalist. And he told her that she needed to do a better job of, quote, "respecting our audience." Respect our audience and keep lying to them. So Fisher apparently complained about this in text messages, and she said that she was, quote, "punished for doing my job." And then Fisher wasn't the only one who faced retribution for telling the truth. When a Fox correspondent named Jackie Heinrich refuted a Trump tweet about Dominion, Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity lost their minds. Tucker messaged Hannity and he said, quote, "Please get her fired. Seriously, what the fuck? I'm actually shocked. It needs to be stopped immediately, like tonight. It's measurably hurting the company. The stock price is down. Not a joke." That's what he was worried about. She told the truth and the stock price was down. Then he told Hannity that he reached out to a Fox executive and, quote, "went crazy." And then Hannity responded to Carlson saying that he mentioned it to Fox's CEO, Suzanne Scott. And then Scott, in turn, told others that Heinrich, quote, "has serious nerve doing this. And if this gets picked up, viewers are going to be further disgusted." So these people are terrified of the monsters that they created. So Heinrich inevitably, I think it was like the next day, deleted that tweet because of the backlash. But even Fox's own owner, Rupert Murdoch, called a Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell press conference, quote, "terrible stuff, damaging everybody, I fear." And then Suzanne Scott replied, quote, "yes, Sean and even Pirro agrees." Yet his employees weren't allowed to fact check it because Fox didn't want to lose any money. So this was clear all the way through from the internal communications at the network. After they made the call for Biden in the state of Arizona, their viewers went ballistic. And everyone at Fox completely freaked out, including their top actors, because they're not journalists. They're not reporters. They're actors, obviously. Essentially, Fox had become the overindulgent parent. And they finally said, "nope, no more cookies for you, spoiled brat child." And then the spoiled brat children threw an epic tantrum. So the weak parent caved again. That's what it is. As all of this was going down, Murdoch was expressing concerns about the competition, mainly Newsmax, but he also mentioned in a November 7th communication that they were, quote, "getting creamed by CNN. Guess our viewers don't want to watch it." Then in a November 16th, 2020 email to Fox CEO Suzanne Scott, Murdoch urged her to check out a Wall Street Journal article about Newsmax, and he said that they needed to, quote, "watch them." Then he added in part, quote, "we don't want to antagonize Trump further, but Giuliani taken with a large grain of salt. Everything at stake here." And Tucker Carlson texted his producer saying, quote, "Do the executives understand how much credibility and trust we've lost with our audience? We're playing with fire. For real, an alternative like Newsmax could be devastating to us." So they hatched a plan. This was around mid-November. They hatched a plan to lure their disgruntled viewers back to Fox. Text messages and emails show that they viewed Newsmax as, quote, "alternative universe when you watch, but it can't be ignored." And then they warned each other, quote, "trying to get everyone to comprehend we are on war footing." And here's what they seem to have landed on for their war strategy. They were going to ramp up the crazy, ramp up the conspiracy theories. On November 18th, the senior VP of primetime programming wrote to Fox executives, and he pointed out that Newsmax was sharing voter fraud stories that they found on right-wing blogs like the Gateway Pundit, a total rag filled with conspiracy theories. And he noted, quote, "this type of conspiratorial reporting might be exactly what the disgruntled FNC viewer is looking for." Then he said, quote, "do not ever give viewers a reason to turn us off. Every topic and guest must perform." Yeah, perform. Exactly. A performance. And in a text exchange regarding Giuliani and Powell's insane press conference, this same guy lamented, quote, "those clowns put us in an awkward place where we're going to need to thread the needle." And then this same sentiment was expressed by those at the top of the food chain at Fox. And I really think this last communication is the most damning. Rupert Murdoch wrote to his CEO, Suzanne Scott, quote, "it's been suggested our primetime 3 should independently or together say something like the election is over and Joe Biden won. Would go a long way to stop the Trump myth that the election was stolen." Scott then emailed others, and she said, quote, and she told them what Rupert had said to her, what Rupert Murdoch wanted to do. She told them, quote, "I told Rupert that privately they are all there. We need to be careful about using the shows and pissing off the viewers, but they know how to navigate." Now, here's the crucial part of this story. This last exchange I just shared with you, that was on January 5th of 2021. One day before many of their viewers stormed the U.S. Capitol, chanted to hang the Vice President of the United States, threatened to put a bullet in Nancy Pelosi's noggin, and the owner of Fox posited the idea of doing the right thing the day before. But his CEO summarily shot it down because it might piss off their viewers. So they sold out the country, repeatedly lied, poured gasoline on the fire just so they wouldn't lose any market share. I mean, we knew it, but this is black and white proof. This is written evidence that they tossed everything aside. They didn't give a damn about what happened to our country, what happened to democracy, what the fallout was. This is truly sick. These people are depraved monsters. There's no other way to put it. So yeah, I hope they fry, you know. I mean, I wish they could go up on actual criminal charges and go to prison, but more than likely, no. But yeah, I hope Dominion and Smartmatic strip them of everything they own. They deserve to lose everything. Anyway, guys, if I hear more or when I hear more, I will let you know. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share this video with everyone you know so the truth gets out there. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Truly helps. Also, if you can become a monthly donor or just make a one-time donation. Every little bit helps to keep the show going so I can keep bringing you really crucial information like this. So thank you again. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.